Ruin is the new DLC for Security Breach, which features a new atmosphere and a new style different from the base game we had before. At the same time, it tells a new and interesting story, focusing on what happened to the Mega Pizzaplex after the events of Security Breach, introducing the new antagonist, the Mimic, about whom you've probably already heard a million theories and fun facts. But did this DLC meet our expectations? Well, we'll figure this out by comparing it to Security Breach itself, looking at their differences and focusing on what each part did better. So let's start with the first thing, our protagonists. Even though it's the same game, Ruin introduces us to Cassie, and thanks to the information you can recover from the DLC, we know that she has already been to the place, celebrating her birthday, and she might have even spent some time in the daycare. We know little about her relationship with Gregory, but it seems that the latter comforted her when practically none of her friends went to her birthday party, and from there they formed a very strong bond. And I say this because she cares immensely about rescuing him, which in the end makes her very vulnerable to the Mimic's deception. But that doesn't take away from the first point, where let's be honest, she went into an abandoned place with a very real risk of losing her life, just to save a friend. That's true friendship. On the other hand, we have Gregory, the main character of the base game Security Breach. Within the game we can't find much about his story, maybe some hints from his therapists, but not much else. Luckily for us, this character is apparently mentioned in a Tales from the Pizzaplex book, exploring a bit more about him, but it's not very important in the original game. And with all the spoilers, Gregory seems to be a hacker, and he's done this both with the arcades we see and also with the animatronics. So let's say that this background somewhat supports Gregory's ability to survive a whole night with super advanced animatronics that want to attack him. Besides, he must know the Mega Pizzaplex very well. Analyzing the importance that both had in their respective stories, let's say that each one is justified. Gregory, for example, wanted to discover and learn more about the disappearances that were happening, and Cassie, because of Gregory's supposed message, went to look for him. I want to think that they had a very deep and strong friendship, but the truth is that it's not explained very well. Even so, it was enough for her to risk her life. The truth is that each one has their own priorities and purposes in their respective games. But I think that in a way, Cassie's naivety shows us how open and good-hearted she wants to be. And if venturing into the Mega Pizzaplex isn't proof enough, come on. She even fixed the voice box for Glamrock Chica, even when she could have attacked her. It's no wonder that Cassie is, in one way or another, more trustworthy than Gregory himself, who left every animatronic damaged except for Freddy. Here, we clearly see a difference. Honestly, I'd choose Cassie. Let's hope that Ruin isn't her only appearance, but after the fall at the end, let me tell you, I really doubt she survived. In terms of mechanics, I think the base game has more, since in this one we have the Fuzzwatch, which gives us the cameras and missions. We also have the possibility to upgrade Glamrock Freddy. We can even get inside him so the animatronics don't follow us, although it has its limitations. Namely, the battle, but we also have certain tools like the flashlight and a camera. And yes, they are rechargeable. And we also have the Fast Blaster, which is very effective when it comes to stunning the animatronics. On the other hand, in Ruin we only have the flashlight and the key, in terms of tool. Although it's worth noting that here we don't have to keep recharging the flashlight. But that's not all, because something that has characterized this DLC is the ability to use Vanny's mask, which lets us enter the digital world, helping us successfully get through certain areas by solving some puzzles. On the other hand, here we also have the well-known cameras, although they're no longer portable, but we have them at the right moments, that is, only when we need them to progress. With all that has been mentioned, in my opinion, I would consider that Security Breach, that is the base game, deserves to win, because it emphasizes exploration, and for that they gave us more tools that we can in a certain way use to avoid the animatronics. Also, remember the game includes moments referencing the original FNAF, where we must close or electrify doors to keep animatronics out. Although, well, no one is going to deny that the puzzles in Ruin are also interesting, but Security Breach was more ambitious. Another thing that could make a big difference is the way the game unfolds. Ruin seems to be a more linear DLC. That is, we don't have routes to choose from. It's just one story. To get the 3 endings, we have to reach the same point. That's basically when the game is ending. On the other hand, in the base game we could choose. Although in my opinion it wasn't very well executed, but that's how the game progressed. And of course, this influenced which ending we could get. Security Breach encouraged us to explore, find ways to get out of the Mega Pizzaplex. It's a shame that bugs and some implementation errors ruined this experience. Good idea but poorly executed. On the other hand, the DLC isn't very ambitious in this regard, but in my opinion it was better implemented. I assure you it's more likely you'll get stuck in the base game than in the DLC. It's somewhat intuitive, and that's why, in this aspect, Ruin deserves to win. No one will deny that both stories have different atmospheres. Security Breach is mostly full of very well lit places. On the other hand, the DLC is filled with dark settings. In fact, these same settings remind us of certain parts where Security Breach did focus on creating a more terrifying and unsettling atmosphere. It could be the part with the endoskeletons that chase you when you're not looking at them, as well as the part where we destroy Glamrock Chica and get dragged into the Mega Pizzaplex dumpster. However, FNAF, being a horror game, should have prioritized that same concept in Security Breach, but it fell a bit short. On the other hand, its DLC does give proper importance to the horror aspect. That's why Ruin gets another point. And along with the horror that comes from the game's atmosphere, we have what supposedly makes us jump in fright. That's right, I'm talking about the jump scares. First of all, let's compare them. We have Glamrock Chica. Her jump scare in the base game looks like this. And in the DLC it looks like this. Even though in the DLC she has a more elaborate jump scare, in my opinion the one that fits best is the one from Security Breach. Now if we move on to Montgomery Gator, we'll see his jump scare like this. And Ruin like this. The one that fits best is the last one. You can even see how Cassie tries to resist, but in the end she can't. In the case of Roxanne Wolf, her jump scare is so it's like this. I think the second one wasn't aggressive enough, because in the first jump scare Roxy looks really angry, and she also shows more fangs, which makes her look a bit more threatening. Continuing with Glamrock Freddy. He doesn't have a damaged version in the base game, so I'm just gonna show what his jump scare looks like, just to use it as a reference in the base game. As well as in the DLC. Next we have Glamrock Endo, who attacks us like this in the base game. And like this in the DLC. And we can't deny that in the latter it's better done, but the one in the base game isn't bad at all. Then we have the Mini Music Man jump scare, both in the base game. As well as in the DLC. And honestly, I think it's better done in the first one, although the differences are minimal. And well, it's worth noting that the DLC has many jump scares like this, but since it deviates from the original, we won't consider them. And finally, we have the most important animatronic, Mapbot in the base game, and Maskbot in the DLC.
That would be...
It's essentially the same, just renamed. Neither is better, though the base game version does have a different voice. Having seen these jump scares, we could say that they were revamped with more elaborate animations, improving some and making others worse, although that's a bit more subjective. So since there wasn't a big difference in my opinion, this aspect would be a tie. Although in my opinion, Ruin has a slight advantage. Though we missed it, we still need jump scares from the main antagonists, which is debatable. because if each one has its own main villain in the base game, we supposedly had Vanny. Good. However, even though she had a great lore in Help Wanted and therefore a lot of potential, in the end, within the game, she became just another character to avoid, which diminished her seriousness and importance. We're not going to lie. Vanessa did have some relevance, but not enough. What was done well was connecting her to the Princess Quest arcades, since if we completed each one, we could get a good ending for Vanny. Although, we could also say that Burntrap is another relevant antagonist. But come on, we didn't have any clues about him. He just shows up out of nowhere, and it doesn't work. They should have used Vanny or Glitchtrap, who also appeared in Help Wanted. On the other hand, in Ruin we have the Mimic. This one is given the importance he deserves, giving clues about who he is, but without revealing his identity until the end, and at the same time giving him a good introduction. Although, honestly, we'd have to be a bit naive not to suspect it was him. But in fact, his appearance is important for FNAF, because he's the first character to appear in a book before being implemented in any game. But aside from that, the Mimic has his own relevance within the same DLC, taking on Gregory's identity. But let's just say, he doesn't have the best motivations. He's just an animatronic built to imitate and dismantle endoskeletons, but instead, dismantles people. That's all. He has nothing against Cassie or anything similar. Artificial intelligence focused on fulfilling his programming and apparently on surviving as well, that is, until we find out that the Mimic is possessed. But that's a topic for another time, however, not that for sure. But of course, let's not forget about Entity, or whatever they're going to call it. An artificial intelligence that prevents the release of the Mimic. Although, honestly, it wasn't very effective. But actually, it's curious that when playing, this one is more relevant than the Mimic itself, since it's a restriction on the bunny mask. It can trigger a game over and will be bothering us throughout the game. Based on what we've said, here's a curious analogy. Entity. Bunny, since these two are the ones that cause annoyance for the player. On the other hand, the Mimic. Y Burntrap no aparecen hasta el final. We have to defeat them, or escape. Taking this into account, and what I detailed earlier, we'll realize that in the DLC, the Mimic is more annoying than Vanny, but he also gives us some intrigue about what he is and what his motivations are. And in the case of the Mimic, well, we don't have to set him on fire for the 20th time, fooling ourselves into thinking that the third time's the charm, but instead we're being chased, so we have to either escape or confront him. So, yeah, point for Ruin. As the last aspect, along with the main antagonists, we have their respective outcomes. As I mentioned earlier, Security Breach has 7 different endings, and the most relevant ones were the Burntrap ending and also the Princess Quest ending. So it's good news that they're still considering the latter, and also that there are some references to the Burntrap ending in Ruin. Princess Quest ending is pretty open-ended. We save Vanessa, but what about the rest? Missing Children Burntrap, the Mega Pizzaplex, Glitchtrap, the amalgamation of animatronics called Blob. What happened to all of that? It's not explained. The DLC doesn't make things very clear either. We have 3 endings, each one more confusing than the last. In the elevator ending, we simply find out that Gregory is willing to betray us just so the Mimic doesn't escape. And in the Scooper ending, we find out that there was a Scooper room in that place, probably built by Henry. Although it's a bit contradictory, since it's still in good condition despite the passage of time, and it went through a fire. Even so, it's still an open ending. Although I think the most widely accepted one is the elevator ending, because I don't think they'd get rid of the Dominic so quickly. Or maybe they would. Regardless of what the answer is, even though this DLC answers some questions, it also leaves many others. Why was Rock Bonnie destroyed and left at the bowling alley like that? What will happen to the Dominic? Were there souls inside the security road robots? Why doesn't the bunny mask let us go through certain specific objects? And above all, where is Lupita? But as always, these endings are yet another opportunity for the community to start theorizing impulsively. Conclusions? Well, the Ruin DLC, compared to Security Breach itself, has a protagonist it's easier to sympathize with. It doesn't have as many mechanics as the base game, but it does hold its own with its new features. It's not ambitious. But the story development has a good pace. It has a short duration, but a great amount of good content. It also focuses on giving a new look to the environment, with a darker atmosphere. Similarly, the jump scares improved in animation though. This doesn't mean they're all better than those in the base game. In addition, more importance is given to the main antagonists introduced, such as the Mimic and Entity. With all this said, I can guarantee you that the new Ruin DLC is really worth it, even more than Security Breach itself. Some may disagree, and that's fine. Share your thoughts in the comments. It makes things more entertaining and gives us more perspectives on the game. Meanwhile, this is everything I wanted to talk about regarding Ruin, and it's made me continue hoping for upcoming FNAF projects. Steelwool Studios is highly capable of delivering great stories and experiences. I'm looking forward to Help Wanted 2. But in the meantime, you can watch this video where Help Wanted is compared to the original games. I'm sure you'll be entertained seeing the things in which they differ and the things they have in common. And well, that's all from me. I hope you enjoyed it, and see you in a future video.